In tonight's Political Insider, Hillary's emails. After months of saying no, the Clinton campaign has turned over the former Secretary of State's personal email server to the Justice Department. She continues to maintain her innocence, but critics insist Clinton has something to hide. For more, we turn to our guest tonight on Capitol Insider, Molly O'Toole, politics reporter for Defense One. Molly, over the weekend, Mrs. Clinton addressed a crowd of supporters, making a joke about the controversy.
By the way, you may have seen that I recently launched a Snapchat account. I love it. I love it. Those messages disappear all by themselves.
Now, later she took a more serious tone, calling this a political witch hunt. What did the former Secretary of State have to say, Molly?
Well, it's important to keep in mind the setting where she spoke. She was at the Iowa Democratic Party's Wing Ding, which is an event, sort of cattle call for Democratic presidential candidates. So it was a very supportive audience that she was speaking to, sort of preaching to the choir here. But she struck really a more defiant tone on the issue than she has in the past. We saw the joke at the beginning, which was a little bit of a lighter note. But regarding the email scandal, she noted the amount of actions that she's taken to hand over her email. She noted that she had just handed over the server and also actually a thumb drive with a copy of about 30,000 emails have been handed over to the Justice Department and the FBI as part of this continuing investigation as to whether classified material may have been leaked or may have been vulnerable because she used this private email setup as Secretary of State. But she insisted that not the investigation necessarily, she said she's cooperating with that, but she said how the House committee in particular, who's investigating Benghazi, have really been using this issue more politically. She said it's not about email, it's not about the server. What it is about politics, and it's an attempt to take the 2016 frontrunner down as the election really heats up.
All right, Clinton has maintained her innocence since the very beginning, saying 7 investigations have cleared her. Now we know the Justice Department has flagged 305 emails for review. That's out of 30,000. So is Clinton right, Molly? Is this political, or could there be more to it?
I think it's a little bit of both. I certainly think the issue is being used politically. I mean, thus far, what they found is that I believe that there were only 2 emails in which they believe that classified information was contained. But one of the key things to note here is that she's not necessarily incorrect. Now, while her campaign has maintained that she never sent or received classified information, they've modified this a bit to say, as such as known, because what's key here is that those emails weren't believed to have been marked as classified, and the responsibility to mark an email as classified would be with the sender. So it's not necessarily the fault, at least we don't know as of yet, not necessarily the fault of Secretary Clinton knowingly passing along classified information in an unsecure way in this private server.
Yeah, you've got a good point there. Now, prior to turning over her email server, polls show a majority of Americans didn't view her as trustworthy. What's likely to happen to those numbers now?
Well, this is why it's really a point of concern on the campaign. Initially, they sort of tried to downplay it, as you saw her making light of it, that it wasn't a key issue. But we have seen that it's impacted her perceptions of trustworthiness among voters. I certainly don't think it will be helping that investigation is continuing. That she handed over her server and her emails, I don't think will necessarily relieve that pressure on the campaign with the perception of untrustworthiness, because that investigation is really continuing. So this is a challenge they're going to continue to grapple with as the campaign continues.
All right, let's switch gears. Donald Trump told Meet the Press that he watches TV for his military advice. He said he looks at different news programs to hear from generals. Molly, I don't think you'll hear that admission from anyone else on the campaign trail. Will Trump supporters care about this?
Well, interestingly, in Iowa, I talked to a fair number of people, probably about 24 people, and people did say that national security was an important issue to them. They said they follow the news. They're concerned about the reports from the Islamic State. Some even mentioned the Iran deal. Some mentioned Russia. Pretty informed voters there at the Iowa State Fair. But a significant number of them said they were supporting Trump. They didn't seem to be too concerned about his lack of national security experience, politics experience, defense experience, military experience. What they liked about him was his style, was his approach. They thought he, had sort of tough talk straight talk, that he was genuine in that way, that he really spoke his mind. So they didn't really seem to be too concerned that perhaps he may get his military advice from watching the shows.
I'm not taking sides, but where else is he going to do it? Get it? He's not in the loop. Doesn't have a bunch of generals or advisors on his staff because he's not in government. So if he wants to pick and choose which people he likes to watch on TV, fine, go for it. Now, despite his surging poll numbers, a new Fox poll says 52% of those asked believe Trump is not qualified to be the next president. The numbers seem contrary to his popularity. You think Republicans are just looking for some entertainment before they get to work and select a nominee?
That was another perception of Trump. People who said that they liked him in part because he was an entertainer, because he provided some interesting things to the campaign, because he said things to kind of stir things up. Some people were there to watch him or try and follow him around the state fair through the media crush because they just thought he was an interesting guy. I mean, he has helicopters flying over the state fair with the word Trump emblazoned on the side.
Giving kids a ride, that was good.
Right, so there certainly is an entertainment factor here, and we'll see how long he lasts throughout the campaign, whether that level of support can actually translate to him getting the nomination.
All right, it will be interesting. Molly O'Toole, politics reporter for Defense One. Thanks, Molly.
Thanks.